Good morning and welcome to Day 3, the final day of the 18th Annual BC Natural Resources Forum. I'm your MC, Sarah Weber, President and CEO of C3 Alliance Corp and Chair of the BC Natural Resources Forum Advisory Committee. We'd like to once again acknowledge that the virtual conference, while broadcasting across Canada, is produced within the areas we know today as Vancouver and Prince George. The studios are located on the territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations, as well as the Lheidli First Nation. We honor their language, culture, and history. We've got another exciting day for you, starting off this morning with a fireside chat with Kim Cailey, Vice President, Upstream Canada for Shell. This will be followed by a panel that dives into how BC's energy industry is responding to the global pandemic and the role that the energy sector in British Columbia will play as the world seeks to recover. And finally this morning, we are honored to once again welcome to the forum Premier John Horgan to provide always a well-anticipated keynote address. So let's kick things off. Up first, I'm pleased to introduce a fireside chat with Kim Cailey, Vice President, Upstream Canada for Shell. Today she'll be moderated by Cailey Murphy, Vice President, Partnerships and External Relations at the Canadian LNG Alliance.
Good morning. My name is Cailey Murphy, and I am Vice President of Partnerships and External Relations at the Canadian LNG Alliance. I am joining you this morning from the traditional territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people. It has been a pleasure of mine to participate in this forum for a number of years and to be here today. And while we're all looking forward to returning to Prince George, it is great to see this important event continue to bring people together during these challenging times. It is my great pleasure to kick off today's energy dialogue with a conversation with Kim Cailey, Vice President, Upstream Canada at Shell. Kim has extensive domestic and international experience in upstream natural gas development and production. And while we can't be in Prince George, we are extraordinarily lucky to have Kim joining us this morning from Calgary. Good morning, Kim. Thank you for joining us virtually this morning. And I understand that under different circumstances, you'd be pleased to join us here in Vancouver, where you have a personal connection.
Yeah, great. Thanks a lot, Cailey. Indeed, I'm coming to you here today from Calgary. Calgary, of course, is the traditional territory of the Blackfoot and the people of Treaty 7 here in southern Alberta. And it is also the home to Region 3 Métis Nation of Alberta. But I'm feeling very sort of spiritually in BC today because I'm actually here representing the Groundbirch asset. And as you say, Cailey, would have very much liked to take this together with you if it was possible in current circumstances. But so very much feeling part of Northeast BC at the moment, which is, of course, Treaty 8 territory. And our production operations in BC are on Treaty 8. And Treaty 8, of course, is the traditional meeting grounds, gathering places, and traveling route for the Cree, Métis, Dene, and Deneza people. Feeling very proud to be building on that history here. And yes, I do have the BC connection because I studied at UBC and I grew up actually in Greater Vancouver. So originally from Burnaby, and I left. I haven't been living there for many years, but I do spend a lot of time in BC, both on the coast and the interior for personal, and then of course in the northern part of the province for business. So I feel very connected and very much a part of BC and excited to be part of this today. My accountabilities here in Canada now are for the upstream assets, which as I say, includes Groundbirch. A bit of the scope is that we're producing now from about 500 wells. So we're producing natural gas from the area in Northeast BC. And again, just really excited to be back in Canada. Been back for a year. My last assignment was in China, and other than that, I've been in various locations mostly outside of Canada for the last 15 years. So really terrific to be back. Thanks.
That is wonderful. Well, welcome back, and we are happy to have you. So let's kick things off and get right into it. We know that countries around the world are looking to natural gases as affordable, reliable energy sources, and in an effort to also help reduce emissions. At home here in Canada, we know that it'll take multiple pathways for a clean energy transition. Can you talk a bit about Shell's view on the role of natural gas in an energy transition?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Cailey. We see natural gas as absolutely critical to the energy equation today, but also in the future. And that comes in for a few reasons. First off, it's a strong support from switching from coal to gas, which is happening now globally, and that drastically reduces emissions and improves air quality and air pollution. In the medium term, gas acts as a very strong partner for renewables, and that's for producing power because many of the renewables are intermittent by nature. So that makes gas a very strong partner for the steady power supply that is needed in many parts of the world. In the long term, we believe that gas will continue to be an absolutely essential part of meeting rising energy demand and to support parts of the economy that are very difficult to electrify. Here in Canada, our shale gas assets also have three distinct advantages. Those are the abundant nature of the resource, so large technical recoverable resources. These are economically attractive, and they're also scalable, can be leveraged up or down depending on the economic and social and environmental conditions. Shell actually plays a very prominent role in the global gas industry. Gas is about half of our total upstream production, and it is critical to our corporate strategy overall to provide more and cleaner energy.
That is great. And of course, there are some real advantages and opportunities for Canada, and particularly British Columbia when it comes to natural gas. What does this opportunity look like for British Columbians?
Cailey, that's really the exciting part for me. As I say, coming back to Canada and seeing the size of the opportunity, it's a tremendous opportunity, is really exciting. And that is both, in my view, for BC and also for Canada. So I'm going to have a little bit of a long-winded answer to this because there's a lot to say. And I want to talk about three different areas in particular. Firstly, economic. Secondly, the scale of the opportunity. And thirdly, some of the local setting considerations. On the economic side, from some of the recent reading that I've done, I want to quote a few pieces of information. First off, recent modeling work by the Conference Board of Canada looked at the economics associated with future BC LNG growth. Under their growth scenario, stable employment impacts would be expected to be seen in nearly every province and territory in Canada, and Canada's GDP could increase on average by over $11 billion. It's enormous. Development of our natural gas resources can also drive further economic potential for Indigenous people. An excellent example of this was last year when LNG Canada awarded a $500 million contract to High Sea Marine, which, as many of you will know, is majority owned by the Haisla Nation. CAP, the Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers, estimates that in BC, the upstream oil and gas natural gas industry provides roughly 12,000 jobs and will contribute more than $5 billion in government revenue through federal, provincial, and municipal taxes by the end of this decade. These are absolutely, staggeringly large economic impacts. And then I want to shift to talk about the size of the resource base. We have a very, very large resource base in Canada and particularly in BC. And I don't know how many of you will be aware that the latest Canadian Energy Regulator outlook sees BC as poised to overtake Alberta as the top Canadian natural gas producing jurisdiction within the next 2 decades. So it's a very significant shift happening in our country and in our industry. The LNG Canada project is leading the way, is showing the way. Given the size and the quality of our resource base, there's a lot more that's possible. And I sit back and look at our position in the natural gas global trade business compared to what I consider peer countries. I always think of Australia in particular as being a sort of a peer type of country, and I believe that we could be doing much more to resources here when I look in comparison, to that example. Our enormous reserves can underpin this, but it's our opportunity to grasp. And lastly, I'll speak about some of the local advantages. First off, market proximity, particularly the large markets in Northern Asia. The shipping routes, so of course, you look at a globe and it's not that far. So that's fantastic that we're starting to tap into that with the current projects and hopefully do more of that in the future. We also have a very robust regulatory backdrop and regulatory framework in Canada. Strong environmental performance is driven in part by that. And I'll give a couple of examples where, in Shell in Northeast Alberta, Northeast BC, we pre-build our pipelines. And that, of course, has the impact that it reduces the flaring that would otherwise have happened. But because we also pre-build our water pipelines, that also means that whereas you may have trucks on, if we didn't have pipelines built, we would have trucks on the road. Those are also adding to emissions for, say, fracking or production operations. So putting in the pipeline infrastructure for water also has a knock-on impact on decreasing our emissions. And I look at the strong backdrop and the strong framework that we have, Cailey, and I think back to, an anecdote that from my global travels, and I worked in Eurasia for several years, about a decade ago. And in that time, I was frequently on international long haul flights for business travel. And there were times when I would look out the window in, foreign jurisdictions and see a lot of flaring. And these are commercial flights. Anyone can get on them. You're flying over these jurisdictions, and there's a lot of flaring. I can remember being very struck by that. And then again, I contrast where we're at in Canada, where we're at in BC on the environmental and the regulatory picture, and it's very strong. So this whole piece, the economic, the size, and the transport and the local environmental conditions bring me to believe very strongly that BC can and should be a preferred source for low emission LNG. We have what it takes to be a global leader, given the abundance of natural gas, the robust regulatory system that I've mentioned, and the environmental performance, but frankly also the level of skill of our workforce. Thanks.
Thank you, Kim. You're right, it is an extraordinarily exciting time. And as you referenced the Conference Board of Canada report, it truly is a pan-Canadian opportunity that we're looking at. So very exciting times. However, we also find ourselves in interesting times. And so how has the current environment forced operators like Shell to think about their development plans?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Cailey. I have enormous confidence in our industry and of course, in my own company's ability to continue to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of our investments, so to keep things competitive. And this has been happening actually well before COVID. I think COVID and the economic conditions surrounding COVID has of course given a boost to that. But we've been on a journey for several years to make sizable gains. And just to give you a bit of a sense, again, when I'd been gone from Canada for several years and came back, and I knew about the level of activity that we'd had in the past, coming back and seeing an actually decreased level of activity for the same amount of gas coming out, that is possible because of the efficiency gains that have happened in the industry. And a couple of examples are that where we used to drill up to 12 or 13 wells per pad in Northeast BC, we now drill sort of 5 to 7, about half that number for the same amount of gas production. Now that, of course, has economic advantages, but it also has advantages on our footprint on the land, because of course it's less disturbance to the land and less disturbance for our neighbors in these areas. Secondly, I'll say that we used to have about 5 drilling rigs going at one time in Northeast BC, and our current program is to keep 1 rig steady. That's our current future program. We think that we can, cover what we need to do in the near term with 1 rig. So, the efficiency gains, as I say, are really quite tangible and quite sizable. Optimizing our cost of supply, our cost of gas supply into the LNG Canada value chain is very, very important to us as an industry and as Shell in maintaining global competitiveness. I'm proud to share that we've been able to decrease our cost of gas supply outlook by about 50 cents USD, 50 cents US per MMBTU. For the future program in the last recent years. So we're really on a good path for that. And the way that we've been able to do this is honing the linkage between the subsurface and the production, the productivity that's expected per well, And it's also from pushing the technical limits of the well layouts that we have in a particular area. And this is all supported by strong partnerships where commercially, the folks involved in total are looking to do the best thing and the right thing for the totality. Our industry has shown that we are nimble and innovative, and I anticipate that this will continue to put us in an advantaged position for global competitiveness.
That's great, Kim. It is always nice to hear about a lot of the leadership that industry is taking. Perhaps just to wrap up, you could speak a bit about how natural gas and LNG development square with British Columbia's climate goals.
Thanks. Certainly not an either or proposition, Cailey. We in Shell strongly support the Clean BC plan and believe that responsible development of our natural gas resource can support BC's economic recovery and also help the transition to meeting climate targets. Carbon competitiveness is key. The LNG Canada project itself has been designed to achieve the lowest carbon intensity of any LNG plant in operation today. Modeling work done in 2019 by the BC Council of BC, by the Business Council of BC and Government of BC show that the province's natural gas sector has, on average, roughly 2 to 6 million tons of CO2 equivalent per year of an advantage to competing jurisdictions. That's incredible and something that we need to be shouting from the rooftops. And we in Shell intend to play our part in BC realizing its aspirations. We've operated in Canada for more than 100 years. We're keen to invest in low carbon projects with our ambition to be a net business ourselves over time. Some recent examples for that are that we have invested in 2 new biofuel plants in Quebec recently, Quebec and Ontario, and those will help to increase the availability of biofuels in Canada. And we're also actively exploring opportunities for hydrogen and supporting growth in electric vehicle charging through an acquisition of a company called Greenlots, which has a presence in BC and across Canada. And I'd certainly like to close the answer by recognizing that addressing climate change requires joint action from business and the government in the jurisdictions in order to scale up clean energy solutions.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kim. I believe we are now fresh out of time, so thank you so very much for joining us this morning. I hope you are able to stick around to listen to the panel that follows us, the continuing dialogue on energy, and stay healthy and be well.
Thank you so much for having me, Cailey, and I certainly will do that.
Bye now.
Thank you very much, Kim and Cailey. We really appreciate you both taking the time to speak today. Well, that concludes our session this morning, so please return to the agenda and select the next session to view the live stream, Panel 7, Positive Energy, Powering Canada's Economic Recovery, sponsored by Petronas. And don't forget to have your questions ready to input into the Q&A for our panelists today. Thank you again to our Q&A sponsor, Jambo.